Welcome to Season 4 of the Changing Earth podcast with Sara F. Hathaway, blending survival fiction and fact to bring you entertaining education that will help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sara F. Hathaway.
Hello and welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast. This is episode number 151, Season 4, Episode 27. So I've been working with my website and stuff a whole bunch, trying to get everything kind of streamlined, and some cool programs that have opened up where I house my website. So what I'm in the process of doing is taking all of my blogs and all of my past episodes and moving them over into my main hub. That way my website becomes this hub of survival learning and fiction and facts and all kinds of great stuff. So I'm in the process of doing that. It's a really long process. However, if you are a member of the Changing Earth newsletter, I will be taking that away from Aweber over to my website. So the format's going to change up a little bit. There shouldn't be any hiccups or anything. A little bit more legwork on my part, but I get to personalize each and every newsletter that goes out. So that's kind of cool. So you might see a little bit of changes there. Just want to give you the heads up on that one. So I've been doing a lot more self-defense training, and jiu-jitsu training is just kicking my butt, man. This groundwork and the amount of core work. My abs are getting really, really nice and ripped out of it, but boy, it is just a game changer when you go from fighting on your feet to fighting on the ground. So I highly suggest that you guys are out there at least staying physically active, because, you know, your preparedness plan kind of hinges on your ability to pull off whatever you think you're going to be able to do. And that all starts with physical fitness. So definitely want to encourage you to stay active with that. And I'm going to be looking at designing some programs to try and help you guys out. But you know, let's keep in mind, we need to be physically active. We need to be physically fit in order to be prepared. You know, it's absolutely essential. Great news on the home front. The new version of the Las Vegas years is going to be available for download when this podcast comes out. That is a Patreon member exclusive. So if you want to read the second edition of the Las Vegas years, you're going to have to go over and sign up with Patreon. You can give, you can contribute as little as $3 a month. $3 a month. You know, what can you buy for $3 a month? What if I had a whole bunch of folks out there contributing to the podcast, just $3 a month? We'd be able to keep this podcast running long into the future. And that is my game plan. So head on over there, sign up for Patreon. That way you can get access to part 2 of the Las Vegas years, and it is entitled Daniel. So that's just a little peek into what it's all about. So my baby ducklings are getting big. I'll go ahead and try and put a little picture of the baby ducklings up on the video. But I hatched some baby ducklings. I have Muscovy ducks. We hatched 24 of them. 5 died, so we're down to 19. We actually had to separate the dad away from them. You know, we don't have a very big enclosure and stuff like that. And I think he was just getting a little bit irritated by their antics. So he got moved to solitary confinement, and he was not very happy about that. So baby ducks are doing good. They're getting big. So last week on the Changing Earth podcast, Bennett brought Vince and Erica back home, and they were still feeling the effects of the drugs that they were given. So this week they awaken, and they're still feeling the effects of the drugs that they were given to kind of keep them a little bit more sedated. So here to talk to us today about poisoning in an SHTF situation is Sam Bradley. I thought this topic was really, really relevant because nowadays, you know, if your child gets poisoned or you ingest something you're not supposed to, we have the poison hotlines, we have emergency medical care, where, you know, you get your stomach pumped, filled with charcoal, all this stuff. But what do we do when we don't have access to any of that? What do we do when somebody gets poisoned? So I thought it was an extremely relevant topic. Here to talk about it today is Sam Bradley. So let's go ahead and get a word from our sponsor real quick. Remember, the Owl Opener, if you go to Owl Opener, you use the code word The Changing Earth free shipping, and you are going to get free shipping on that product. So once again, the code word is The Changing Earth free shipping. Get on over there, order your Owl Opener. It's a great tool. You are not going to ever be stuck in your vehicle. This thing is so easy to use, requires no muscle. So let's get a word from them, and then we'll get right into the Battle for the South adventure.
Trapped in your own car, how are you going to get out alive? The only way out: break the glass. This credit card-sized device shatters the glass with the snap of your finger. Owl uses a carbide tip and the resonant frequency of the glass itself. Your strength is irrelevant. Owl has a recessed razor blade that slices through jammed seatbelts instantly and comes with a holder that adheres to your visor. OwlOpen.com. Proudly made in the USA. Order now while supplies last.
Chapter 27. Erica slowly awoke. Her head was throbbing. Panic overtook her as she remembered being held captive and had no recollection of the room she was in. "Calm down, Cupcake. You're safe," Bennett told her, watching her stir and try to get her bearings. "Where are we?" Erica asked groggily. She was momentarily comforted by his presence, forgetting the grudge she was holding. "In Albuquerque, at the militia base," he answered her softly. He watched her holding her head in pain. "You okay, Cupcake?" he asked, rising to check her over. "I'm fine," she snapped, pushing him away. The action stung the injury on her arm, and she winced painfully. "Just calm down. Let me look at that," he insisted, grabbing her arm and turning it over. She was too fuzzy and weak to stop his massive hand from controlling her. The wound had festered with infection from overuse and dirt. "I'll get the doc over here," he told her. "I'm fine," she told him, rolling over. She relaxed a little when she saw Vince sleeping in the bed next to her. "Okay, Erica," he relented. "I'm glad to see you're back among the living," he told her, gently touching her leg as he left to go find the doctor. She fell back asleep, staring at Vince breathing deeply next to her. When she reopened her eyes, Vince was gone. Her head was much clearer, and she fought the panic of waking up in a strange place with the remembrance of the conversation with Bennett. "Where is he?" she wondered, rolling over. "Hello again, Cupcake," Bennett said to her. "You're still here?" she commented with a heavy sigh, rolling her eyes. "Of course I am. You can't get rid of me that easy," he teased her. "Tell me about it," she jested back. "There's a Spitfire, I know," Bennett smiled, sensing that the drugs were wearing off and she was returning to herself. "The doc's here to check you out," Bennett told her. "I told you I'm fine," Erica insisted. "Let's just have a look at that anyway, sport," a man said in a German accent. Erica recognized his voice from her past and quickly turned to look at him. She winced in pain but recognized his face. "Stan?" she asked. "In the flesh," he replied. "Oh my gosh, what happened to you?" she wondered. "They didn't take you to the camp with us." "No, they didn't. I was shipped east to help with the injured, sick, and dying. I followed your legendary escapades quite closely, though." "Obviously, you two know each other," Bennett commented, feeling left out of the loop. "Stan patched me up after my encounter with Doug. We left California together. The Fed separated us on the way to Vegas, and I never knew what happened to him," Erica explained. "I've been doing okay," he admitted. "Luckily, my skills have been in high demand. Speaking of, let's check that arm and that wound on your face." She waited patiently as he looked in her eyes and gently touched the gash on her cheek. Then she extended her arm for him to examine it. She confirmed that an infection was starting to grow. He washed it with antiseptic and applied an antimicrobial cream over the top. "That should do for now. I'll authorize a bottle of antibiotics to stop any more infection from spreading," Stan assured her. "Stan, it's so good to see you again," Erica repeated. "Reminds me of old times. Do you have a family?" "I married a lovely woman, Isabel," he said happily. "But you know the law, Erica." He looked down at the floor for a moment. "I'm too old for children anyhow." Yeah, they're just a pain in the butt, she said loudly as Dexter approached with Vince. Mom, you're up, Dexter elated as he ran to her and hugged her tightly. I missed you so much, he choked out the words, trying not to cry. Erica let the tears fall and declared, I missed you too, Dex. Then Trucker put his front paws on the bed and broke them up with a lick from his gigantic tongue across both their faces. Oh, come on, Trucker, Dexter scolded him. He backed down gently and sat down dutifully, staring at Dexter. It's okay, Erica said cheerfully. I missed you too, Trucker. The animal felt her positive vibes and came back for a hug. Do you know if Daniel and Grandma and Grandpa are okay? Erica asked frantically. Slow down, Mom, Dexter comforted her. They're fine. Lieutenant Colonel Vergis made sure Daniel, Grandma, and Grandpa got to Reno. Daniel's pissed that you didn't take him, but all in one piece, Dexter informed her. Erica thought on his words for a moment. What about Star? She's going through some stuff, Mom. Sean left her for another landowner's daughter, so he could stay in the band, he said sadly. Erica saw Vince's eyes fill with anger and his face turn red. He paced, trying to calm himself behind Dexter. Obviously, Dexter had already given him the news. At least she's okay. Why didn't she come? Erica asked. Dexter lowered his voice and whispered to Erica. Because you know what's coming, and someone had to stay with Daniel and Grandma and Grandpa. Because of the flood? Erica questioned loudly. Stan took notice, along with a few of the nurses. Bennett rose sharply from his chair. Erica, don't, he commanded sternly. They have a right to know, Erica countered. Not now. The plans are being put in place, Bennett assured her. Those plans better get executed quickly, she threatened him. He glared at her in her audacity. I think you better stow your gear in the bunkhouse and go grab some food. We can discuss this later, Bennett commanded. Erica glared back at him. Sir, yes, sir, she declared spitefully. The tension decreased as Dexter and Vince showered Erica with love and escorted her to the chow line. Oh man, no more breakfast? I was really looking forward to rehydrated eggs with bacon bits, Erica teased her boys. Nope, you'll just have to make do with rehydrated mashed potatoes and beef stroganoff, Dexter said sarcastically. The potatoes plopped on her plate and the sauce from the stroganoff turned it all into a soft mush of flavors. Erica jested again, holding up her plate. Trucker licked his lips at her feet. Look, Mom, Trucker wants some, Dexter commented. Nope, Trucker, this slop is mine, Erica told the wide-eyed dog. As she was finishing up, Bennett approached again. I need to talk to you, he told her bluntly. Whatever about, Master Sergeant, Erica chided him. It's First Sergeant now, he told her. Well, well, congratulations, First Sergeant. That's much better than Second Sergeant, right? She teased. Erica, please stop. I need to talk to you, Bennett requested. Okay, but only because you said please, she acquiesced. Tensions between Erica and First Sergeant Bennett running very, very high after she wakes up, and she's trying to shake off the cloudiness from these drugs that she was given. So here to discuss what to do if you are poisoned in a long-term survival situation or just a natural disaster scenario when you don't have access to immediate medical attention is Sam Bradley. Sam is a fire and EMS educator. She's an author, a DMAT paramedic training officer, former National Ski Patrol Outdoor Emergency Care Supervisor, and co-host of the Disaster Podcast. If you want to find out more about Sam, head on over to disasterpodcast.com. That's disasterpodcast.com. So let's go ahead and welcome Sam to the show. Today I am back with Sam Bradley. Sam, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to spend it with me. I appreciate it.
Well, and I enjoy it. This is a lot of fun for me. I have my own podcast, and like I told you before, it's kind of fun to talk to somebody different on Skype and get into some different topics. And we've been learning from each other, so that's a good thing.
Always a good thing. Love learning, and I love keeping open minds about lots of ideas so we can keep that mind filling up with good stuff.
Exactly.
So today in Battle for the South, Erica wakes up after First Sergeant Bennett rescues her from captivity. She was taken prisoner by this lady. They were going to take her back to the Federal Forces hub, and First Sergeant Bennett gets her out of there, but she was poisoned in there. She was basically drugged, so that she was not the cocky little SOB that she normally is. So,
don't you love cocky characters?
Right, I do. So, it got me thinking a lot about what happens if you get poisoned in an SHTF situation, like your kid accidentally picks up bleach and drinks it, or, you're eating a plant that it is poison. So like now we go to the hospital, they treat us, but I wanted to know, how can we even begin to handle this? Are we kind of SOL, or what are we going to do?
It's a big question because there's, ironically, I just did a training thing for this CE application that deals with toxicity, and all, you take prescription drugs that are intended to do something good, but when people start to take them recreationally, or they get a hold of them and they shouldn't have them, like a little kid getting grandma's cardiac meds, then they become toxins, then they become poisonings. And God, there's just so many of them. A lot of times you don't know, because somebody comes in and they're altered, we call it ALSC, altered level of consciousness, but you don't know why. So you have to really become a detective and go, okay, what is this? Look, if it's a kid, God knows they put everything in enough. But one of the biggest issues is what's underneath the sink. They get in there where you keep your cleaning supplies and that kind of thing, and this smells interesting, and so forth. I remember when I was a kid, my mother gave me these liquid vitamins, and they tasted just like candy. And what she didn't know was I was going in there and just chug-a-lugging these things. So probably not a real good idea to give a kid something that tastes that good, that they don't understand that too much can be a real problem. But, you have to look around for evidence. We teach our EMTs and paramedics, when you first walk into a home and you suspect a drug overdose, what are you finding? Do you see pill bottles? Do you see paraphernalia? Do you see a needle sticking out of somebody's arm? Those kinds of things that can be really obvious, but sometimes those obvious things aren't there. Basically, there's so many different types of things that can become poisons. Food, certainly, especially, when we're talking about food that you stored in your prep material, you need to rotate that out, because even though that stuff may have a long shelf life, at some point in time, or you're putting foods in there that aren't intended to have a long shelf life, or, remember it's not so much an issue anymore, but canned foods, if you see it bulging, that's not a good thing. Botulism, exactly. Yep. And some people may still not be aware of that. Drugs themselves, again, that people may have prescribed to them. Older people have a real issue with that because they may forget to take them or take too many of them. We run into those kind of things all the time. There's plant toxins, like you mentioned. For some reason, kids or animals will decide to eat the eucalyptus tree or some of these toxic plants.
We had a story of a Boy Scout who used a branch from, it's escaping my brain right now. But it's a ground cover they grow out here a lot. He used the branch to put his marshmallow on it and roast it over the fire.
Oh, really?
And the plant is poison, and it made his marshmallow poison and killed the kid.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in knowing what that was. And that's the thing. It doesn't take a whole lot of some of these toxins.
Right. I want to say like
serious damage.
Hydrangea.
Hydrangea?
Yeah, wow. And it's like the ground cover that they grow like in between the freeways and all that. They grow it a lot out here. So,
we'd all be wise to be amateur botanists, especially in a disaster situation. What if you have to eat plants to survive?
Yes.
That's something Kevin could tell you a lot about. You need to know what berries are edible. I mean, you want to survive, but you don't want to kill yourself by eating the wrong thing. So, you know, at least have a good reference.
That's why I
Have
stay
a
away from
good-
mushrooms altogether. Like,
Oh my
no
God,
mushrooms.
they grow in my front yard here in Colorado, and I'm always worried that the dog's going to eat them when it's real moist outside.
Yeah.
But, you know, have a good book that has visual material of what different plants looks like if you can't figure out the name. I mean, I have all these trees around that I don't know what they are, but there's even apps. I had an app, I got to think of the name of it. But if you took a picture of the leaf in your phone and scanned it in,
they work okay. Yeah, they work okay usually. And another thing that I do is like, so usually in a book, they only have a picture of that plant in one season. So I will go and like take pictures of the plant in multiple seasons once I have it identified, and that way I can know what it is when it's not the same as the picture in the book, basically.
Right. I'm trying to think. I remember we were on we used to do, when I was in California, we had a federal team, but then we also had a state team that did wilderness, wildland fire medicine. So we would go and help the firefighters in that situation. But they used to have convicts that came up, and they were such that they could be allowed to be out there doing firefighting. And I'm trying to remember what it was, but we had a kid come in with the goofiest symptoms I've ever seen, and nobody had a clue what it was. And it was myself and a nurse in there. Neither one of us could figure out. And like, his vital signs were all over the map, and his level of consciousness was all over the map. And we're trying to figure this thing out. And it turned out one of our paramedics, who was asleep, was a botanist. And he knew immediately when he woke up in the morning, because we had to send the kid to the hospital, and he actually almost died. But he knew immediately what it was, and that people will eat this right out of the ground to get high. Well, he didn't have a sense of dose, and he actually almost killed himself because, hey, we're out here, we have a chance to get high. And somebody told him, hey, if you eat this,
it'll mess
and it's
you up
like,
real good.
oh my God, it had really threw us. We had no idea what it was, but we knew it was bad and it might get worse. So we sent him down to the hospital, and he was there for about a week. So stuff like that. There's a lot of plants that people may use recreationally, and if you don't know what you're doing, that could be a bad thing. But again, I think we're back to the point that you may need plants to survive. The chapter in my book is they're on a disaster assignment in Central America, and they're going through the woods, and one of them's being chased, and he kind of has to survive that way. So it's really good to have some basic knowledge of that stuff and having a reference. And I think you have a great idea in terms of taking pictures of these plants at different points in the season, because they're going to look different.
Yeah.
Another thing is insecticides and herbicides. A lot of them are almost like, chemical warfare, what they can do to you. And people don't pay attention when they're spraying their posies in the spring and they're not wearing facial protection. And the next thing you know, their heart rate's 20 and bad things are happening because they're just not protecting themselves from the inhalation aspect. Herbicides, all of that stuff. I mean, you can still, a lot of them they've taken off the market, but a lot of them are still out there. And you need to use them appropriately, because a lot of those end up being accidental poisonings, but it's not a good thing. Pay attention to the labels, pay attention to respiratory protection and those kind of things.
Don't put it on in the gale force wind.
Probably not a good idea. No.
Right.
Parathion is one that comes to mind. Then we have animal toxins. We have a doc that comes on our show who is a venom expert. And boy, has he given us an earful. That would be a great episode for your listeners to listen to, because he really focuses on snakes. He has a team of venom, they call it Venom One, of venom experts across the country, because even a lot of ERs aren't prepared for, there's so many different kinds of snakes. Each area has different types of snakes that are common. Like in California, you've got your rattlers and coral snakes and that kind of thing.
Right.
But they may not always have the venom for that particular snake. And boy, he does an excellent job on educating us about that. But consider a disaster scenario where your critters are all kind of stirred up and running free, and you've got, oh my God, we know that mosquitoes carry bad things, and now we had a flood scenario, and you've got all this extra water, and that's just one example. In the South, they have alligators that come up out of their swamp and into the streets. I mean,
yeah, well, in Florida, wasn't it the shark swimming down the road next to the truck? That was awesome.
I mean,
that was
those
awesome.
things will happen. They're out of their confined environment. And I remember during Katrina, you'd have to watch for alligators coming up onto the street if the street was flooded. Pretty freaky stuff. But just, the fact you're out there in the elements are less than compatible, and you've got critters that can jump out and bite you. One thing I remember, the very first disaster deployment I went on was in 1989, Hurricane Juan, that took out most of the south of Louisiana, and I was working for Red Cross at the time. And a lot of the people have their homes on stilts. But, it was all good. I was working in the service center. People were coming in. And, then they started fewer and fewer of them. And then, boom, there was like this mass of people. And the sun was out. And I thought, why are they coming in now? Well, snakes come out to sun themselves. And they have water moccasins and cottonmouths. And they say, if you see the cotton in the mouth of a cottonmouth, you're toast. And all of these snakes were starting to come out. And I remember one guy saying, when I found a bunch in my kid's bedroom, I knew it was time to leave. So.
I would think so.
So, in those situations, the animals are stirred up. They're upset. They can't find food. There's all of these things going on with them that where they may otherwise ignore you, like a rattlesnake, they may come after you. And so that's not something we always think about. But, where are you going to go to get a specific venom for that critter?
And rattlesnake bites are nasty quickly.
They are, especially if one gets into your vasculature, into your vein. And people think, especially in the spring when they reproduce, and little kids see a tiny little snake and think it's fun to play with. Well,
no.
Baby snakes are even more lethal. Where adults kind of know how much toxin to put in you to get what they want, baby snakes just give you the full load. And I remember in Northern California, every year we would have to fly kids into the children's hospital that had been envenomated because, we didn't have the anti-venom locally. So, keep your kids away from baby snakes.
It's really... I always when we're out on our property, I'm like, boots, still boots. What? It's summertime. I don't care.
Oh,
boots.
yeah. Well, in any wilderness setting, I mean, when you talk about snakes, they can sense a 1 centigrade, change in temperature. They sense you by that, and they will, jump at your ankles. So if you don't have anything protecting you, of course, then there's the more comical side of, especially males for some reason that like to drink, and they go, "Hey, I'm going to grab the snake.
Yeah, I'm going to catch it.
How macho I am," and they get bitten in places that we don't want to talk about. But
nice.
it happens because they think somehow that they're smarter than the snake.
When we're on the trail, we make a lot of noise. So we scuffle our feet, If I'm not out there hunting, we're making noise. We got bells that hang off of our walking sticks, and we shuffle, make a lot of vibrations. And that way the snakes, they don't really, unless they were forced to, they don't really want anything to do with you. So if you make a lot of noise, and they usually move off, unless we were in this disaster type scenario where they were forced in the same environment as you.
And that's exactly what we're talking about. And that's a really good idea. I didn't think so much about that, about having bells on your walking stick and so forth. But that's a really good idea because most animals won't attack you.
Exactly.
They're afraid of you.
And we have mountain lions and, bears and stuff like that. So you don't want to just come walking down the trail all stealth quiet right into the bear zone, You'd rather have something on your stick that's making noise and they go, uh-oh, humans, I'm out before you ever even get up there.
Yeah, but the thing is, too, the more we take down forests and the more that we take away their natural habitat, they're going to get closer to us just to try to survive.
Yep.
Like you were saying, when you get, mountain lions and
well,
things
we've had
you
all
would
the
have never seen in
wildfires.
our backyard.
Yep,
Exactly.
with all the
Oh, yeah.
wildfires, I mean,
Absolutely.
we've had mountain lions like never before. I mean, we have one that lives directly in our area right now. He's spotted, 3 to 4 times a week, staying in the same zone where usually they migrate long distances and then they'll come back like the next month. But, they're staying in the area. They're running 3 and 4 together at a time because their zones have been so burned out.
Exactly.
So
and we destroy, even on a regular day, we're destroying their natural environment. So we got to pay the piper for that. They're going to end up in our backyards. I saw this YouTube video someone put on Facebook where these 2 dogs were chasing something in the backyard, and then this big, huge brown bear goes jumping over the fence. It's like, oh my God, did they know what they were getting into? But fortunately,
usually,
the bear didn't want to deal with them.
Yeah, usually they don't cause too much problem. You just make a lot of noise. I hit a big pot with a spoon, right by them and just try to spook them out. My shotgun's like my last resort, especially for the bears.
Yeah.
The mountain lion, if he's hurting anything, he's done for, There's no, because they can take my 7-year-old son out from underneath, in the backyard. That mountain lion could come right across, and he's gone before you could even blink.
Yeah, I have my own bear story, and it had to do with when when the rangers tell you, put all the food away, they're serious, and they'll even get in your car. So my paramedic partner and I were up camping up above Mammoth somewhere, and, the ranger told us all about the bear thing, so we thought we put all the food away. Well, what I didn't remember was I had these lemon drops that were in my backpack, and which was sitting next to the wall of my tent. And in the middle of the night, I heard this scratching, and I look and see that the precision of this was amazing. The bear had made a hole in the tent, in the backpack, and had his paw around the lemon drops.
Yep.
And I about freaked, and I'm calling my partner, and what do you want me to do? I go, I don't know. We got to get rid of this bear. So I did just, I made all kinds of noise, and finally it went away. So the ranger came around in the morning, and we told him about it, and says, oh, well, did you get his ID tag? I said, really, dude? Like, I'm going to get up close and personal with this bear to find out what his name is?
Can I check your ID there, please, real quick, before you scurry off? I mean,
no kidding. You want to know which bear
No, they
it
are
was.
extremely agile. I use old milk jugs for working out sometimes. I put them on a stick, and then you can lift the milk jugs. So I had some sitting outside, and the bear came and just took the cap right off, and he drank the water out of them. I'm like, really?
Really? Oh, they're clever.
Like, he didn't claw it open and drink it. Nope, he took the cap off, and you could see his marks on the handle where he drank the jug. I was like, this is insane.
They have
We're
a lot
in
of
the drought.
And they're not stupid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. In a worst case scenario, as far as poisons, we've also got chemical weapons and even radioactivity that would fit in the poison spectrum, but hopefully we'll never have to run into one of those.
That
events.
would be awesome if we didn't have to.
Yeah.
So let's kind of break some of them down. Let's take a couple and just kind of go through a scenario. If we had somebody and we knew they were poisoned that way, what could we do to help them and possibly save their life?
Well, that's a big question, because if you don't know what it is, you don't know how to counteract it. Now, take the situation of a little kid having ingested something they shouldn't have. You want to get it out of there. And if you can't get them to a hospital to have them, quote unquote, pump their stomach, sometimes milk will help them throw it up, or at least kind of dilute it in their stomach.
Okay.
We used to carry, pre-hospital care folks used to carry what we call Ipecac that causes you to throw up. And even though we quit carrying it on ambulances and so forth, you could still get it, in a drugstore. The other thing is activated charcoal. And it's getting somebody to literally drink charcoal. and getting a little kid to drink that would not be all that easy. But what it does is it kind of soaks up the poison in their stomach. So the thing is, you're either diluting it or you're getting them to throw it up, and that may be the best thing you can do. Now, obviously, this is only going to work with somebody who's conscious and oriented enough to drink something. As I mentioned in another podcast, you don't want to give anybody anything by mouth if they're not conscious enough to drink it, because it can end up going down their lungs. If you have an idea of what it may be, and that's, you really need to do some research on what could have happened here. Is the door under your sink open and the floor cleaning solution is spilled on the floor? Maybe they think it tasted good. Kids don't hide stuff. They just do what they do. And so they don't, it's not like adults that are trying to hide their illicit stash. They just leave it out there for you. In terms of plants, again, having a good reference to them. But if you have the ability to call poison control, that's, along with 911, if you're in a situation where those two are available, then I would do that. But the thing is, the paramedics may be in the same situation you are. There are no specific antidotes for a lot of things, and there are a lot of things we don't even know exactly what they are, or how poison they are, or how much it takes to poison somebody. So the poison control folks, if you have, if it's not a SHTF situation such that the communication is down, calling poison control is really helpful. Then they will actually call the hospital that the patient's being transported to. And a lot of times the ER may have to call poison control as well to get specific information, because they just don't know everything about every possible toxin out there.
Right, and they can look at the product and figure out the labels and know the active ingredients and stuff like that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, things like drugs are easy because they usually know what drug will counteract that. So again, the kid takes grandma's heart medication. They know immediately what the signs and symptoms are going to be, what the potential outcome may be, and they probably have some drug to counteract it. So that's a little bit easier. Even paramedics may have something, like anything that's an opiate. They have magic medicine called Narcan, which is actually even available in the streets these days. That is immediately will counteract the negative effects of an opiate. Yeah. Again, plant toxins, it's anybody's guess. None of us, unless you're a botanist, but having a reference is really helpful. Or knowing, these are the plants. That's why it's good to know the plants in your yard. If your kid gets a hold of one, I have this plant that kind of has a little long pointy, it's green. Well, that's really helpful.
Well, there's a little yellow flower on it. Well, there's so many little yellow flowers in nature. Come on now.
Yeah, right? How many of those are there? Right. As far as insecticides or herbicides, that person, I'm sure you've heard of the demonic sludge. And the symptoms they have will be, it's like every body fluid is leaking out of them. Salivation, lacrimation, which is tearing. They have diarrhea. I mean, just everything is leaking out. And if you're familiar with the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, it's a profound parasympathetic reaction. Everything just kind of leaks. They can become very, the level of consciousness may drop, and a lot of bad things can happen if this isn't turned around. But that's another thing that medics may have medicine to counteract. It's actually a medication that's used in heart patients as well. But the thing is, what is it? So if Grandpa was out pottering the posies and not using, any respiratory protection, and then he comes in and he's very, he can't move and he's very tired and he's sweating and, salivating and lacrimating and all of these things, bingo.
Yeah.
It's easy then to explain to a medic or to an ER or poison control, this is what I think we're dealing with here. So the more specific information they can be given, then the more they can help you do something immediately, which is usually pretty important.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like a printout or I don't know, some kind of a go-to sheet that you can have in a prepper library for like what to do under different types of poisonings. That, yeah, from
There's
poison
a lot
control
of
or
good
something like
books
that.
out there that it might be worth the investment, and I
Yeah.
would even get a hard copy of it, because if your communication devices go down, if you only have an ebook and you can't read it, that's going to make you crazy. So, if you buy that big expensive book with all the pictures in it, because
I
that's
had
always
this
good.
great poison control book, but yeah, it's all gone.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of them out there. Maybe we can find some recommendations on some good ones. Kevin may know of some.
Okay.
For just all the kinds of, just being out in the wilderness type of things, including animal toxins and, how to deal with critters and who you don't want to get bitten by and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, having that reference is golden, because what if you can't, communications are down. You had that big earthquake. You can't get through to 911 or the poison control center. You're on your own.
Yeah. And if it's an inhaled substance like that, then, that's much more difficult to, you can't just dilute it or throw it up, because now it's in all your mucous membranes.
Exactly. But, like I said, knowing what, plants are around, and, maybe there is something that could be at least helpful in managing that until, more specific help can get there and more specific antidotes can get there.
Yeah, I know, even poison oak can be severely.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, if you have somebody who got full blown poison oak inside, outside, and you can't get them to a hospital to get them a steroid shot or whatever. I mean, they can die from that. So
that was the biggest issue we had doing the wildland firefighter medical support. Was these guys would get there, they'd go right out into the field, and they would come back in after their 24 hours, and they would walk in the tent, and they would be one big, huge
puff.
Red ball of, yeah, oh my God. And there's actually, that's a good thing. I'm glad you brought that up, because we obviously carry a lot of steroids. But we also carried stuff that keeps you from getting poison oak, because it's the oils that get on your skin that causes the reaction. But there's stuff you can get that would be great to keep in your kit that you put on, and it keeps those oils from getting onto your skin. And I keep thinking, why don't these guys have that so they don't get this in the first place? And it just as a side note, a little humor here, and when they would ask for a male doctor or a male nurse, I knew that, it had the bathroom. Yeah. So that was
they got it up painful. Everywhere.
So what we would do was we had this soap that we would give them to really wash down with, so we get because we wouldn't even let them in our tent, because that stuff can get on everything else. People. So we would give them this soap to go shower with. He said, scrub this down really good, then come back and we'll give you the meds. But unfortunately, the meds took place over a course of days, and there wasn't like a magic fix for it. But I'm glad that came up in this conversation, because get some of that stuff that keeps, because you don't, if you're in an area you don't know, and people forget what poison oak and poison ivy look like. Have your skin covered, or have some.
We don't forget what it looks like out here, because we got it everywhere, man. I don't get it. I don't get poison oak unless I'm like hit by. Yeah, I have to be like hit by the branch and it cuts me, and then I'll have like a line of poison oak there. But my husband gets it super bad.
Yeah.
So if I'm out in it and I come in and don't take my clothes off and wash and everything immediately, I can give it to him, and he was never even out there. So.
Oh my God, that's a really good point. And I remember being on an over the side rescue once, and my friend, the firefighter, said, "Oh, there was poison oak down there." Oh, yeah. Well, why didn't you tell me that before we went down there? So for a week, and of course he's like you, he didn't get it, but all the rest of us did. And I was literally out of work for a week because of all of these weepy, itchy lesions all over my arms. It's not something you want, trust me.
Yeah.
So.
And even some clean water sources, I mean, that aren't they don't look really bad, But if there's been a lot of like duck activity, goose activity, you have all those nasty bacterias in the water, and then you get that water on you, it can cause these severe rashes and things like that.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yep,
like
my
I told
husband got
you
some of that, and it was
on
nasty.
another occasion, that was a big issue in Katrina when people were, they have sewers there, and when the water comes up and it floods, all of that stuff
mixes all
comes up
together.
as well, and people walk through it, and people were coming out with literal burns on their skin from the toxicity in that water.
Yeah.
So,
and this wasn't even like that. This was like a pond. It didn't have like a big inflow, outflow, a lot of stagnant water. And then like the goose activity is always high around there and stuff. And my husband was pulling these buoys out, and the rope was just going across his leg, across his jeans as he did it. Well, the water caused these huge rashes across his legs. It was disgusting. Yeah. I was like, wow, you never even thought. But if that happened in a situation where you can't go get that steroid cream and you can't go do those things, you're going to be in a lot of misery for a while.
Well, there are topical creams that you can get from any drugstore that will at least help take some of the pain and itch away.
Yeah, so that might be a good thing to stock as your anti-itch cream.
Exactly. So get the stuff that keeps you from getting the oils on your skin. Get the soap that helps you wash the oils off. I mean, steroids, if that's an option. But then, get the cream that will really help take some of the itch and the pain away while it's healing. Those are all things that it would be good to have around, especially if you're in California or an area that's really thick with it.
Yeah, and do not burn it or you're done.
Oh, no, and I was going to mention that. There is a respiratory component. You don't want that stuff in your lungs. Trust me. And that was the biggest danger with these guys on their wildland fires. I mean, hello. You got a big
it's all on
of
fire.
Poison oak burning and you're breathing it in. That can't be. And they never really know.
That can put you in the grave right there. That's not a good one. Yeah.
And they don't wear the same level of respiratory protection on a wildland fire as they do on a structure fire or something.
Yeah, that's just great. Well, go fight the fire in that huge thing of poison oak. Good luck with that one. Oh, no.
And they may not even be aware. I mean, we know, we always check with the land folks for that particular, depending on national parks or wherever it happens to be, to see, they will tell you how much poison oak or poison ivy might be, depending on the season and where it may be. So we always try to get a heads up on having the guys be more aware in those certain areas. But, if it's a SHTF situation and you're running through a forest, you're not going to have that information. So better to have
just long sleeves, gloves.
Yes. Yeah.
I usually wear, I personally like wearing helmets. I don't know. Yeah. I have a helmet that has a nice set of goggles in it that I play airsoft in, and so I don't mind having my gear on, and I just pretty much keep it on, and that way I know I'm not going to be left open to things like that. So,
well, even a hat is helpful. You don't know what's going to drop on you from the trees or whatever, or something could fall and hit you in the head.
It's just like
the helmet's not a bad idea.
Yeah, it's just like a lightweight climbing helmet, and then it has goggles that actually folds right out of the helmet, so I don't have to worry about carrying them around. They just pop back up into my helmet. Yeah, and you can go climbing in it. It protects you from the airsoft, and so I don't mind wearing it around. So.
Well, and eye protection, just to reinforce that concept, even bloodborne pathogens, getting somebody else's blood on you, the biggest exposures we have these days is when the guys get it in their eyes or even in their mouth, God forbid. So, having eye protection is something we mandate when they're dealing with any blood exposure.
If it's an SHTF situation, you better get used to wearing goggles around. That's just
exactly
that's it. That is it. You need to protect those things.
People don't realize how much can be absorbed in mucous membranes and skin.
Absolutely.
So, like you well said when you said wear long sleeves, or even when it's hot, you got get the kind of clothing that will breathe and let perspiration out, but will keep cooties from getting in.
Right. We have sun shirts out here, and they're they're just so lightweight, and but it's still long sleeve and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I have a few of those too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But protect your eyes if it's a really bad situation. And it's always good. I don't know what you subscribe to in terms of respiratory protection. I mean, I'm not going to run around with the
Yeah. No.
level of protection I wore at ground
Right.
zero. That would be a little uncomfortable, and it kind of freaks out patients when you wear that. But having some kind of, if it's a bad situation where stuff in the air. I mean, in Northern California, there were a lot of refineries. And quite often there would be a release and people would have to shelter in place. And, you don't want to get that stuff in your system. So having some kind of better than just a dust mask, but some kind of respiratory protection for those kind of events.
The painter's masks, the painter masks, the ones that have the 2 little respirators on the side, they're not extremely expensive, and they do a pretty good job. They're not super high. You're not going to get through radiation or something in them, but at least they hedge off, a fair amount of stuff, and they're not too expensive to have on hand.
Right. And you need to know where they are because, there's still the danger of chemical weapons out there. People get relaxed about that, but that's kind of what I deal with. And, you want to know where that is. I mean, if somebody has a bomb with chemicals in it, who's going to live to get outside?
Right.
The guy that has a mask and knows how to use it kind of thing. I keep one in my car, strangely. It's been in there forever.
And you say you're not a prepper.
Well, it was my fire department stuff. It just, I was doing so much training right after 9/11, when it was the height of everybody's fear. And just kind of stayed in that habit that,
Good habit to get in.
They even gave us, there's a respirator in a can, believe it or not.
Nice.
I'm serious. I have that in my car, and it will stay completely fine as long as it's in that can. And I've never had a reason to open it. But that's the one I carry in my car. I know it'll be fresh and functional and clean if I ever need it. I mean, say you're driving along the road and there's an off-gassing from a refinery with toxic stuff in it. I worked for a fire department that was probably the toxin capital of the world. It was an all-industrial city, and there was always strange purple stuff in the air. And I mean, it was just
awesome.
Oh yeah, we made sure we had those. That if you see a strange cloud, put those on. Anyway, it's not as bad an issue for the regular guy, but it can't hurt. I mean, get one in a can and it'll last forever. And if you need it, you got it.
Yep. So when it comes down to poisoning, basically try to identify it. If we're in nowadays, get on that poison control, call 911, get the help quick because that helps to be quicker about it. But in an SHTF situation, if you know it's ingested, then you want to try and dilute or get it out, right?
Yeah. Now, one corollary on that. If it's a petroleum-based product or something like people have tried to commit suicide with Drano, you do not want to make them throw up because that which burns going down is going to burn going up.
Okay.
So that is the big exception to wanting someone to get it out because those stuff like that will eat your esophagus and it's
will
going to
you
be made
still
worse.
give them? Would you still give them milk, like some?
Give them very small amounts because you give them a lot of anything, they're going to puke it up. But very small amounts of milk that they're not likely to throw up will help dilute it. Like I said, activated charcoal is a good thing because if you can get them to drink it, that will help soak up the poison.
Are you just mixing that with like water?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's gross. I mean, trying to get somebody to drink it is always fun. And then if they do throw up and you're wearing a white shirt, that can be really
awesome.
But,
you better not be wearing white in an SHTF situation. That's all I got to say. Anybody who is, I'll just smack them with the silly stick. So
one place I worked as a medic, we had white shirts, and I always questioned the wisdom of that. But,
right? Yeah, good luck keeping that clean.
Yeah,
so then, and if it's a respiratory type thing, or like an exposure to the eyes and stuff, like maybe just rinsing them down with water or getting that cleaned off, soap water.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I can't think of everything. But any exposure to the eye, wash it, wash it, wash it. Put it, we even use like IV bags that have the tubing at the end. But if nothing else, stick somebody under the faucet, and for like 20 minutes, you got to get whatever it is out of their eye if they're not going to have potential for permanent damage of their eyes. And we don't want to lose our eyes.
Yeah, I got habanero oil in my eye one time, and oh my gosh, I thought like I was gonna die. My eyes swole up.
And the longer it's in there, the more damage it'll do.
Right.
So, like I said, we would eye wash them all the way to the hospital just to make sure, So 20 minutes isn't unusual. And if you know that there's something like that in the air, make sure everybody else around is protecting themselves from the same fate. But I'm thinking of things like, we're talking about the organophosphates, Grandpa powdering his posies, that he's inhaling that or getting it in his eyes.
Right.
You want to make sure nobody else is going to get exposed to that either. So, hey, don't go out in the yard right now. There's nasty stuff out there. And make sure.
Don't let the dog out running through it.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you very much. I've got my dog, so.
My dog follows me around when I'm spraying the Roundup. I'm like, no, get out of here. So I put her in the house, She's like, this is great. I'll follow you everywhere. I'm like, no.
Not in this case. And, that's another thing, too, is when you're spraying your yard and any kind of insecticide or herbicide, make sure you know whether it's going to affect animals or kids.
Yep.
That, you're putting it on your plants and, it's bad enough they want to eat the plant. You don't want them eating the organophosphate.
Right.
So.
And then they see you digging in there. They think they need to be digging in there. So.
Exactly. The dogs and the kids. So.
Exactly.
So that's kind of it. Kind of what I could spew out here in a short period of time.
I think at least it is. It's a huge topic. But at least it gives us, like, some kind of direction, because it's not something that I've seen a lot of information on. Like, what happens if you get poisoned and there's no help? I mean, what are you going to do?
It's just because there's so many different kinds of poisons, you almost have to have reference to each different kind of thing.
Right.
But again, they do have books with a lot of, detailed information, and be wise to have one of them. Yeah,
that is a necessity, I think, for the prepper library, would be a poison control book. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. That has pictures.
Yes.
So if you don't know what it is, you can say, hey, it looks just like this. Oh, my God, that's bad.
Give us a bell, watch them. It's going to be good. So,
don't get it on
all right, so, well, why don't you go ahead and just let people know where they can find you at one more time, and then we will wrap it up.
Very good. Well, on social media, under Sam Bradley 11, and the usual social media places, over at our disasterpodcast.com website. And we have a Facebook page for Disaster Podcast as well. And we have about 600 members in there, so come on over and join the conversation.
And join in the fun.
There you go.
All righty, Sam. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I really, really appreciate your time.
You bet. It's fun talking to you. You have a very laid-back, enjoyable podcast, and I enjoy doing it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I like to just have fun and learn lots, so that's how we do it. All right, thanks. All right, Sam, thank you so much for coming on the show. Some great information there that we definitely need to keep in our toolbox for disaster scenarios when we might not have access to immediate medical attention. Might want to write down some of those ideas and keep them in a preparedness binder. That way, if other people in your family have not listened to this podcast and they don't know what to do, you have directions for them on what they should do in that type of situation. Want to remind you one more time that the next edition of the Lost Vegas Years is available for download for Patreon members only. If you would like to become a Patreon member and a contributor to the podcast, head on over to www.patreon.com/changingearth. That's www.patreon.com/changingearth. For as little as a $3 contribution, you get access to the full Changing Earth archives, both installments of the Las Vegas years and all kinds of other goodies that are over there. I have some sound clips and things that I take out of podcasts and give you as extra content over there. And I'm really excited about getting that going. Really excited about seeing this podcast continue long into the future. So head on over to www.patreon.com/Changing Earth and become a Changing Earth contributor. Thank you so much for listening today. You guys are what makes the wheels go round here at the Changing Earth, keeping an eye on what our planet is doing right now, because there are some interesting things going on. So eyes open, and until next time, remember, dream, survive, thrive.
Thank you for joining Sara for this episode of the Changing Earth podcast. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Day After Disaster, Without Land, The Walls of Freedom, and Battle for the South at www.author.sarafhathaway.com. If you love Sara's books and this podcast, please head over to Amazon or iTunes and let everyone know by leaving a review.